US President Donald Trump has said that he will probably sign the immigration order today. This comes after his announcement that he will be suspending immigration for green card seekers for 60 days. Listen in.
Therefore, in order to protect American workers, I will be issuing a temporary suspension of immigration into the United States. You heard about that last night. By pausing immigration, we'll help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as America reopens. So important. It would be wrong and unjust for Americans laid off by the virus to be replaced with new immigrant labor flown in from abroad. We must first take care of the American worker, take care of the American worker. This pause will be in effect for 60 days, after which the need for any extension or modification will be evaluated by myself and a group of people based on economic conditions at the time. This order will only apply to individuals seeking a permanent residency. In other words, those receiving green cards, big factor, will not apply to those entering on a temporary basis. As we move forward, we'll examine what additional immigration-related measures should be put in place to protect U.S. workers. We want to protect our U.S. workers, and I think as we move forward, we will become more and more protective of them.
The US president is moving ahead with his plan to partially reopen the American economy. Public opinion is divided on the president's decision, with many experts saying that a full-scale reopening is not possible without universal testing. According to President Trump, 20 states are drawing up plans to repeal stay-at-home orders as of now. That's 40% of the US population. President Trump once again put the economy ahead of public health by saying that America wants to get back to work. This announcement coincided with the US recording more than 2,700 deaths in a single day, making it one of the deadliest days for the outbreak. The president got a major boost from the US Senate on Tuesday. In a bipartisan vote, the US Upper House passed a $500 billion relief package. The package aims to replenish small businesses and hospitals. It will also provide an impetus to America's testing infrastructure. The bill will now head to the US House, where it is likely to receive similar support. The other major highlight of the day was a meeting between President Trump and New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo. After sparring for weeks over the federal government's handling of the crisis, the two men reportedly had a productive meeting at the White House.
I'm proud of the relationship my administration has forged with New York, and I can say very honestly with New York State and New York City. They've been terrific to work with. The New York metropolitan area has been the epicenter of the outbreak here in America, and the federal government has spared no expense or resource to get New Yorkers the care they need and the care they deserve.
Life is a fine line. Being in government is a fine line. Everything is a fine line. I'll tell you how I negotiate the fine line. You tell the truth. Just tell the truth. And I said to the president from day one. And by the way, he's done the same vis-a-vis me. He has no problem telling me when he disagrees. And he tells me when he agrees. I have no problem telling him when I disagree and when I agree. So fine line, and you can try to figure it out. Or you know what? Heck with it. Just tell the truth. And whatever it is, it is.
And now, for more details on these developments within the US, Jagriti Dave is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Jagriti, thanks for joining us. Now, this announcement that President Trump will suspend immigration to the US for around 60 days temporarily is quite a significant one, especially since this is the year of elections. Many are comparing this to the 9/11 scenario as well, when border security was under heavy scrutiny. But what does this mean for the international workforce within the US, and where do they stand?
Yes, this is quite a significant move by the president. So this is effectively a move that is halting people who are trying to seek permanent residency in the United States for 60 days. So this is green card holders, people who want to apply for green cards. That will be suspended for 60 days. Those on guest visas, such as farm labourers, for example, they will remain unaffected, and that's probably because people who rely on labourers, short-term labourers, like in farms, mainly in farms, places like Florida, they were concerned that it would affect their workforce when the country starts to reopen. So there's clearly exemptions, there's clearly caveats which which the president said at the briefing that he was going to that was going to be ironed out, and that this executive order was still being written. So once it goes through the lawyers, that's when we'll get more information about that. And he said he's likely to sign it on Wednesday. So that's when we'll hear more about which of those immigration visas will be exempt and which ones specifically will be affected by this. But in today's briefing, he said that it would be for green card holders for 60 days.
Right. Now, as we know, the US is headed for elections in November this year, and it seems that both President Trump and Joe Biden are attacking China over its handling for the COVID-19 pandemic. So how do we see the relationship between US and China developing over the next few months?
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it, that there seems to be a cross-party move to be critical of China, notably, as you mentioned, in the rhetoric of the Democratic nominee for the presidency, Joe Biden. And we all know the president's language regarding China, and particularly over the last few days in those briefings. He is talking about how he is critical of China, the trade deal that that the United States has done with China. He's made several claims about how much China is paying in tariffs as a result of the deal that he's made, which obviously fact checkers looking at this have pointed to the fact that the president isn't always completely accurate when he makes these points. But really, the relationship between the US and China, it has been unpredictable even when that long-fought trade deal was being made. It took a while with a lot of back and forth, a lot of good language after meetings, but no actual deal manifesting. So that deal took a long time, and there was a lot of language rhetoric back and forth between the two. It'll be interesting to see how China reacts going forward to the president's language. But as you say, it's less to do with specifically President Trump, but there seems to be more of a bipartisan approach of being critical towards China. So the US-China relationship has been unpredictable. It's likely to continue being unpredictable going ahead.
Right. Now tell us a little bit about the situation in the US. We know that the US faced its deadliest day when it came to the virus. And are restrictions lifting, and has the country hit its peak when it comes to COVID-19?
So several states across the United States are considering lifting restrictions. You are seeing protests in several states from people who are protesting against these stay-at-home measures, which they believe it is time to lift. Now, this goes against health experts and lawmakers in several of those states who do believe that it is still too early to lift restrictions. Georgia is one particular example. The governor of Georgia is suggesting that certain establishments like gyms and tattoo parlors could reopen as early as Friday. But lawmakers there and health experts say it is far too early, that there hasn't been a significant decline in order to do so safely. As you were saying, state governors have been telling the president that widespread testing is needed. Business leaders have been saying that widespread testing is needed to ensure employees can go back safely to work. And this is clearly being done on a case-by-case basis, the reopening of the economies. The president is saying it's leaving it up to the states to make those decisions. He said with his meeting with the New York governor that they're planning to increase the amount of testing that's happening in New York, given that New York was the epicenter, and there are moves that people want to get New York back up and running, but they have to do it cautiously given the scale of the outbreak in that state. So there's really a tension between public health and the economy here, and also a tension between between states doing things differently, and the fact that it's up to states rather than the central government to decide when those conditions are, those stay-at-home orders are lifted.
Right, Jagriti, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all your inputs.